name is Andrew Biscay. I'm the owner and founder of South Lake Agency. We're an independent insurance brokerage in Excelsior, Minnesota. The claims that we see can range greatly from a standard hail claim to a fire claim, burglary, a tree falls on a vehicle. If it happens, we've seen it in our office. I think the odds of a flood happening at your property can vary tremendously depending on where your home is located. Some homes are located on a floodplain, which increases your odds of having a flood claim. But some folks, if they're in a high-lying area or they're not near a river or another body of water, the odds of having a flood claim are pretty low. And I think it's important to note with flood, that's something that's never covered under a traditional homeowner's insurance policy. That is something that you need a specific flood policy to cover. So other versions of water damage that we see that are really common would be a toilet gets clogged, for example, and overflows, and some of that water comes and spills on the floor, and sometimes it even seeps down into the floor underneath. A washing machine hose becomes disconnected and creates water damage in the basement. You get a hose that connects to a refrigerator that provides a water source for the ice maker, for example. That can become damaged and cause water damage. Sink overflows. Dishwasher malfunctions and creates water damage. So, a lot of folks don't realize, but there are a lot of things inside of your home that can create water damage. The odds of a burglary and theft, some folks think some areas are more prone to that than others, and the data supports that really nobody's immune to that. So even if you feel like you live in a safe neighborhood, the odds of a burglary happening, it could happen at any point, right? So it's important that homeowners take proactive measures to secure their property to make sure that they're well protected against that exposure. Water damage claims can vary tremendously. It depends on where the source of the water started. So if it's upstairs in a multi-level home, the claim can easily be in the six figures, and that's not uncommon. If it's a simple washing machine that's in a basement, an unfinished basement with a concrete floor, for example, and maybe there's some damage to the drywall or the studs, that claim can be as little as a few $1,000s. There are, especially now more than ever before, there's a huge variety of smart home devices especially for water damage. You've got Wi-Fi enabled battery powered devices that sit on the floor of your lowest level of your home, and when they detect water, they can alert your phone, they can sound an alarm, but by alerting the homeowner to having a problem, especially as it relates to water, you can proactively prevent that problem from becoming much larger. Yeah, and the products that turn off the water source, those are that's the high end, and I love those products. If we want to take it a step further, there's some, Nest makes a product, and there's some other manufacturers that have a product that if they detect carbon monoxide in the air, what they'll do is they'll proactively also disable your furnace to prevent the source from continuing. I would consider myself an early adopter of most technologies, especially as it relates to consumer technology. So I've had Nest devices in my home for at least the last 5 to 6 years. I think it's great. I think that as a father, with a stay-at-home wife and with multiple children in the home, while I'm out at work and while I'm meeting with clients, it's important for me to be able to keep an eye on my property. If there's smoke or if there's CO, it allows me to be aware of the situation, and I can assist even remotely. That's a good question. So security systems that I would recommend for your home, the bigger the better, right? So if you've got an alarm that is centrally monitored by the police department, if it detects burglary and fire and everything, those are the packages that are going to get you the biggest discount on your homeowner's insurance. The insurance companies look at those as folks that have an advanced level of security in their home have a lower likelihood of having claims, so they're going to reward clients for that. But even entry-level devices, something that detects motion at the front door, something that turns on a light when nobody's home, if there's motion in the driveway, for example, even little devices like that, there's proof to show that those have been a deterrent for burglaries. And because of that, many insurance companies now will actually give you a small discount on your homeowner's insurance premium as a result of using those what are called proactive devices. So, as far as companies that have really taken the lead on offering discounts for smart home technology, Travelers has done a tremendous job. They offer discounts for pretty much every different variation of smart home device. So if you consider devices that monitor for water leaking, devices that are centrally monitored, and as well as devices that just simply alert your cell phone to motion and possible events in the home. So Travelers Insurance does a really tremendous job with that. The acronym in the insurance business is a UBI device. So what that does is, essentially what it does is it allows the insurance companies to rate from a premium standpoint to meet the exact driving habits of that particular customer. And the way it used to work many years ago was that, your rates would be determined based on your zip code or based on your gender or based on your age. And the reality is that's just not enough data to give somebody an individualized rate. So insurance companies are using modern technology to allow safe drivers to have lower discounts. And it works the other way around too. If you find yourself being a driver that maybe drives a little bit more aggressively, you could end up paying a little bit more as a result as well. Companies have taken a pretty big leap forward with smart home technology. You get some of the newer companies like Hippo Insurance, for example. They actually go as far as providing new customers a smart home device packet. So that includes motion sensors, fire alarms, things like that. And what that allows is the homeowner to keep a better eye on their property. And as a result, Hippo is going to experience a lower claims ratio. So if you are somebody with a lot of technology in your home, it's a good idea to at least let your insurance agent know different technologies and different products may be covered in a different way depending on what carrier you choose. Generally speaking, a lot of your personal content, so if you take your home and you shake it, everything that falls out, that's considered personal property. For the most part, there's some exceptions to that. So general consumer grade home security devices that are loose and they're not permanently affixed to your home generally would fall under personal property. So typically that's covered under your homeowner's insurance. So solar panels, that's a good question. So with solar panels, it's becoming wildly popular. If they're permanently affixed to your home, they could be considered part of the structure itself. But if they're loose, they could potentially be also covered under personal property, which is an interesting aspect. So, and where it gets confusing now if you're using the panels to sell electricity back to the grid, it becomes a business venture, which some homeowners insurance policies have exclusions for business ventures out of your property where you're generating an income. So it's important that you disclose that to your agent that you have solar panels to make sure that they're properly insured. Yeah, hail and weather damage to your solar panels, that's why it's important to let your agent know that you have them to make sure that they're properly covered. That would typically be covered against the same perils as your roof. So consider hail damage, severe wind from a tornado, for example, lightning strikes, a tree falls on your roof and damages those solar panels. The primary perils that we face here in the region, those you typically want to see coverage for those under most policies for your solar panels. It really depends. So I'd hate to speak on behalf of a licensed adjuster, but generally speaking, if the panels are damaged and they're inoperable or if it's affected their lifespan in any way, typically the panels would need to be replaced. If the panels are undamaged and they maintain their operational ability as they were prior to the storm, they would remove the panels, they would complete the roof repairs underneath, and they would put the panels back. So it really depends on the type of loss that you're experiencing. I think as far as smart home devices go, I think a lot of our clients consider, what kind of a discount do I get on my homeowner's insurance premium by having that device? And that's as far as the conversation goes in most parts, but you have to consider that a lot of the time a smart home device can also prevent a claim from happening altogether, which saves you a deductible. It saves you from having what's called a chargeable claim on your homeowner's insurance premium. And smart home devices, especially ones that detect motion and light up your home, things like that, can actually prevent a claim altogether. So yeah, the device may secure a small discount on your homeowner's insurance, but actually preventing a claim altogether helps do a few things. It helps you save your deductible. It helps you save not having to deal with filing a claim. So the discount for having a security system in your home can range pretty wildly, depending on the carrier, depending on the type of security system that you have. I think that for a very low-level basic security system, something like a motion detecting light that maybe also sends a video signal via Wi-Fi to your cell phone, something like that may save you about 3% on your homeowner's insurance premium. Doesn't sound a lot, but when you consider a premium of $2,000, roughly on a homeowner's insurance policy, $60 every year, it only takes a couple of years to recover the cost of the device in that situation. There's some folks that go all out, right? If you have a device that monitors fire, burglary, and you have window sensors. It detects broken glass, it detects open windows when you're not home, and if it's centrally monitored, meaning that it reports to the local police station or the local fire department, devices like that can save you as much as 15% on your homeowner's insurance premium. So at that point, when you're looking at a couple $100s in savings on your homeowner's insurance policy, it definitely may be a consideration worth taking. Yeah, most companies have adapted their policy language to meet the modern technology. If a company doesn't currently have it, I'd be surprised if they didn't offer a discount for having a proactive smart home monitor device, at least in the next 1 to 2 years. It's really becoming really mainstream. Water damage can be one of the most destructive forms of property damage. The problem with water damage is that it can come from multiple sources inside your home and outside of your home. So with water, it's a gray area with insurance. Some things are covered and some things aren't. Again, definitely recommend consulting your local insurance agent. But with water damage, the issue with not catching it right away is that unlike a burglary where it happens and then it's done and it doesn't get any worse as time goes on, if you don't catch water damage in a prompt fashion, the damage just continues to get worse. The water can spread throughout your home, it can leak, it can damage materials in your home. If you look at your drywall on your home, that's essentially cardboard. Well, put a piece of cardboard in a bucket of water and watch what happens to the piece of cardboard. The water wicks up. And it just creates damage. So water damage, if it goes undetected in your home, in just a couple of days, you can turn a $10,000 claim into a $200,000 claim just from letting that happen. This is another situation where it can vary depending on carriers. Most reputable carriers, and especially if you work with a reputable local agent, they're going to make sure you have what's called full replacement cost on your personal property. What that means is they're going to give you brand new replacements for the personal property that was damaged, lost, or stolen. For example, if you have a burglary at your home and they ransack your home and they take a lot of your personal property, what's going to happen is each policy has a policy limit of how much they'll cover up to, but it's generally the homeowner's insurance responsibility to provide a list of what was stolen, provide it to the insurance company, and typically the responsibility would go and just rebuy those items and you would be reimbursed for their full value after a claim. One of the questions I get a lot regarding personal property is, do I have to prove that I owned those items? In most cases, the answer is no. A lot of clients ask me, do I need to have a list of what I had? You don't need to, but it's a good idea, and here's why. If you're asked to provide a list of what was stolen, and if you're somebody with a lot of stuff, that can be hard to come up with that list. You might realize, oh man, I forgot about this after the claim is already closed. So you're putting yourself at a disadvantage by not at least keeping an inventory of your important personal property. What a lot of homeowners do, and even renters, that would be what's covered under renter's insurance. What a lot of homeowners will do is they'll enable the video feature even just on their iPhone, and they'll walk throughout their home and they'll capture video footage of all their personal property, and every time you pass a drawer, open the drawer. Every time you open a closet, open the closet. You keep a 10-minute video file, you update it about once per year, and you put it in the cloud, and you have a pretty good idea of what you had in your property. So if you ever have a total loss, for example, you might find yourself replacing 1 to 5,000 individual items. That video file can make that happen a lot faster. So firearms, there's typically some coverage allowed under a traditional homeowner's insurance policy for stolen firearms. The coverage can be limited depending on the company, $5,000 to $10,000 generally. So if I find yourself being somebody that has a large gun collection, maybe a lot of accessories, we would definitely recommend consulting your agent and making sure that those items are properly covered. So if you have items that go above the limit of your insurance policy, you can add those items individually and what's called schedule them on your policy to make sure that they're individually listed and insured for their full value.